It's 1 o'clock on the nose. You can go ahead and get started.
Yeah. Something about talking to FileMaker, eh?
So yeah, this is a little bit based on a project that kind of fell into our laps for somebody that was using a system that they built on their own for the better part of 30 years. And eventually the product that he was using for dictation, which is Dragon Naturally Speaking, it's a pretty big piece of software, and if you've ever done anything with dictation, you've heard of Dragon before because it's pretty much the biggest and best thing out there. So about 3 years ago, Dragon stopped producing its Naturally Speaking dictation software for Mac OS. I guess they saw the writing on the wall that that was something Apple was starting to integrate with Mac OS. So that kind of left out abandoned the people that were already using it though. So they were locked into old versions of Mac OS so they could continue to use it, or they had to switch their systems to Windows. But a lot of people that develop things on Mac only products, they don't really have the option to switch to Windows. So it kind of came to us here to figure it out as a proof of concept, saying, can we use FileMaker to build this? And usually the answer to that question is yes, we can build pretty much anything in FileMaker, but this specifically had the need for dictation specific things. So mostly what we're going to focus on is what's called voice control in Mac OS today. If you're a Windows only user, this is probably not going to be a great meeting for you. We're going to be talking pretty much just about Mac OS features today. So that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. So let me share my screen. Figure out how to get that. My toolbar out of the way here. So what we're looking at is going to be in system settings. Now in the latest version of Mac OS Ventura, this settings app has really changed drastically. So if you're seeing older versions of Mac OS, some of the stuff I'll show today might be in other places as well. So as Apple has developed Siri over the last, I don't even know how long, 8 years now or so since they introduced Siri. They've also been using that tool as a way to also do voice recognition. So under accessibility features, these are features that are normally built for people who are sight impaired, that need to use voice control to control their computer. But there's all sorts of help under the accessibility menu now in Mac OS that helps people out. Specifically, what we're going to focus on though is voice control. So voice control is the ability just generally to control your entire computer without using a mouse, without using a keyboard, without using a physical interface, so to speak. So everything is commanded through the microphone. So we're going to take that and we're going to use a very simple version of that by just using dictation. So if you come in here and just turn this on by default, you'll notice that you'll get this little shim that shows up, and you can drag this around your screen and really put it anywhere you want to. Top left is usually a good place to keep it, and you'll see that it has two states for voice control. So you can have it asleep, where it's basically not controlling your screen. So right now I can give it any command like open FileMaker and it's not going to do anything for me. So there's a ton of built-in commands here with this. So you can see all there's 100 commands in here. Programs can put their own commands in here, and you can also create your own custom commands in here as well. And they can be specific to any app on your system. So this can be taken very far. If you want to use voice control, you can basically set up your own dictionary of commands, so to speak. And the good thing about that as well is they're portable. So I can actually export my custom commands to a file, go to a different macOS computer, and import those commands. And assuming all the apps I have installed are the same, I can transfer my entire library. So that's important here, because if you're setting up another computer, you don't want to be sitting there recreating your commands from scratch all day. So I'm going to turn that off. There's also vocabulary. You can teach voice commands so that it recognizes that vocabulary for you. And you can import and export your vocabulary as well. So this vocabulary in our demo here is important because it has voice vocabulary specific to the medical field. So I'm going to leave that off, and the reason I'm going to leave that off is our proof of sample, our proof of concept file that we wrote actually opens that and turns that on automatically for you. So you don't have to go and turn it on every time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this up in FileMaker right now. And hopefully you saw that really quick there. I'm going to turn that off for a second there, leave it so it doesn't think I'm typing in a field. But what that did, when I opened up this file, there's a startup script that actually runs an Apple script that opens things up and turns on voice control for you. And when you close FileMaker, it actually turns that off as well. So I can close this file. And if really quickly there you see system preferences open up, and what it actually does, what the Apple script actually does is it goes through each one of these until it finds out that you're on the accessibility tab. And then it goes through each one of these and it says, here's the voice control tab. And once the voice control tab's there, it just toggles this trigger here. So again, I'll reopen that back up. And you'll see that that automatically shows up. So what that looks like here is, here's what Apple scripting looks like. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, this is Apple's macOS's specific way of doing things. So basically all I'm telling this is open up system settings here, start scrolling through that left-hand list until you get to accessibility, and then start scrolling through accessibility until you get to voice control. And then you want to check the box to turn on voice control. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, obviously, but this is something that I was able to research and find online and kind of reproduce in FileMaker to automatically turn that on. So when we close this as well, we just do the opposite of that. It does the same thing. The only thing difference here is that it turns off the checkbox instead of turning it on. All right, so let's look at, so another thing that's important for voice control and dictation is feedback from the application you're in. So if you're someone that's vision impaired, can't see the screen, and you want to go to a field on your system. So like we have 5 fields here. When I click in one of those fields, I need to know what field is active, so I know what field I'm filling out. So if I'm filling out a form with first name, last name, address, that kind of information, I need the system to give me feedback that tells me that's what I'm in. So this is what we would call voice feedback. So voice feedback is also done with AppleScript, and it's actually a dead simple script. The command is just say. You tell AppleScript to say something. So right here, we're giving it the field name in FileMaker. So say what field you're in. And what that does is when I click in a field, Let me turn up my volume so everybody hears this.
Field 3, Field 4, Field 5.
So as I'm clicking through each one of these things, the AppleScript is just telling macOS to say that. And that offers some more complex functionality as well. The Apple scripting supports saying things in different languages, saying things in different voices. If you want a male or female voice, if you want a voice with a British accent, that type of thing. All that is all that's possible with AppleScript, because that command is more robust than just say this. But whenever you just say this, it will use whatever your system default is. So you can use that voice feedback for telling you what field you're in. You can have it repeat back the contents of the field to you, so you know that what you wrote out is recorded okay. You know, a lot of stuff in there. So we're in field 5 now. I'm going to tell voice control to wake up. Wake up. Come on. There it is. So now I'm in dictation mode, and it's going to start taking down and writing out sentences. And each time I pause, it's going to dump whatever I just said and dictate it out to this paragraph here. Period. New paragraph. So I can continue to dictate to this field as if I was using a keyboard, but this is obviously much faster than typing, period. So that's a quick example of what dictation looks like. And as long as you're pretty clear in how you're talking, and I'm not super clear today. I had some dental surgery today, so I'm feeling it today. So my voice isn't as clear as it would normally be. That's why it had, that's why it transcribed Meredith instead of there it is when I said that. So you have to be pretty clear. Most people that use dictation software use it with a headset, so the microphone's very close to their mouth. I'm using my webcam camera microphone, which is just a tiny little microphone on my webcam, so it's not picking it up. But still, you'll notice I did a couple things when I was dictating. I told it to write a period, so it ended the sentence. I said new paragraph, so it went to a new paragraph.
Field 1.
Now here, I'm going to turn the microphone back on, and I'm going to advance it into a new field here as well. Go to next field.
Field 2.
So this is something we're working out too. When you're combining all of these different things together, you'll notice when I went to the next field, it processed that command and I went to the next field. But since when I click in that field, it said field 2, my microphone's picking that up as dictation. So you might want to, we can take this proof of concept further and work out these small little, they're not really bugs, they're just quirks in the way that the dictation works. So obviously there's a lot of verbal commands that are just built into voice control, like I was telling you here. Go to next field is supported by FileMaker. There's different commands here that are supported by FileMaker. So if so you have go to next field, go to previous field, go to sleep, turns your microphone off, wake up, wakes up your microphone. I believe go back and go forward, go to the next record and go to the previous record in your found set. So there's a lot you can do here, but you can also write your own commands. So I'm going to show you, let's see. So when you're registering your own custom command with FileMaker, let's say FileMaker new. What you can do, there's different ways you can activate FileMaker. One of those ways is through the Shortcuts app, which I'll show you here in a second. Another way is to open up a URL. So the URL you put in here can be an FMP URL that opens up your current database. So I can say like sample dictation, and you can give this a script to run in there. So that's a way to do things. You can also tell it to run an automator workflow. You can use a shortcut. So I'll show you the shortcut for creating a new case record here. So this one has create new case record. So I'm going to show you this shortcut now. So this is kind of a process for how to interact with different things. So I created a basic portal here for case notes. Those would be things that are related to this record. So I need a way to do that. So I'm going to tell it, create new case note. Create new case note. Sorry, let me try this again. Create new case note. Create new. So what it's doing now is it thinks I'm dictating to the keyboard. So what FileMaker is doing is it's trying to do that. So when I click out of this, maybe I can now do it. Create new case note. Or maybe not. So there's a lot of back and forth and training that you have to do to make this more perfect. But what I do know
Field 3.
is that if I dictate that in here, it should also do that, because we've also created keyword triggers in here. So keyword trigger
Field 3.
will actually use the text that you're dictating into the field itself.
Field 5.
So we'll dictate create new case note here in this field, and we'll see what happens. Create new case note. All right, so you saw that ran a FileMaker script. So it detected that I had that keyword, and what it did is it opened up a new record, created a new case note entry for me, and put my cursor in the screen here so that I can dictate. This is a new case note. I'm just using this as an example, period. Save case note. Save case note. All right, and that's supposed to close the window too, but obviously, so you can use keyword triggers just by detecting the text that's being dictated to do special things with FileMaker as well. Let's see, text expansion. This was another important part of this product, or this proof of concept. So this person is using this software to do basically autopsies, not specifically autopsies, but similar to autopsies. So what they need as well is what's called text expansion. And all that means is that when they're filling out a form, it would be the same thing if you were copying and pasting parts of your form from boilerplate from another file. So in this case, we created text expansion here.
Field 5.
So that you could also do that. So we'll do laceration boilerplate. Now this will activate when I click out of the field. So right now it hasn't substituted because it's still in dictation mode, but as soon as I click out of the field.
Field 5.
Oh, right, it's field specific. So I actually have to put this in field 1. So let me do that again. I'll change that to field 5 so it actually works in field 5.
Field 5.
It's also case sensitive, so I need to make that lowercase.
Field 5.
Or maybe not. Where's that?
Field 5. Field 4. Field 5.
So this is where the testing kind of, gets a little more interesting. Let me try
Field 1.
putting it in back in field 1.
Field 5. Field 1. Field 2.
So you saw it there when I switched between field 1 and field 2.
Field 1.
It expanded. I need to put a checkbox here that turns off the voice feedback. But you can see that like a text expansion function is useful, especially if you want to be able to save time by saying one keyword phrase that then gets turned into other things as well. All right, 2 more things I wanted to get into demo to you before we start taking questions and talking about where you can take it from here is Siri shortcuts and how to use Siri along with this. So far you'll notice like nothing I've done has been part of Siri. Siri's kind of sitting up here alone without having interaction with this. This has all been voice control, but there's things we can do with Siri as well. And this has been around for a few years now, but there's a shortcuts app in Mac OS now. So when you open these shortcuts, these are designed for you to be able to do things like run FileMaker scripts. So we'll take a look at this create case record one here. And it's a very easy one-liner here, and I'll show you how this is done. So in the script workspace in FileMaker, you'll see that there's a little microphone next to these. And if I right click on a script, it will say disable shortcuts donation, but I want to enable shortcuts donation. And what that does is that tells FileMaker to tell Mac OS that this script is available to run from shortcuts. You're donating it to be able to run. So when I look at this now, I can look at apps and I can say, I want to run a FileMaker script. So I just drag that in here. And then here's all the files that I've donated steps or shortcuts. So I'll choose sample dictation. I'll choose which one I want, create new case record. And I can even pass that a parameter like, Siri or something like that as my parameter. And if I go back to my script here and I say create new case record is my script. I say, I just want to show what script I received here. So again, I'm leaving my voice control off for now so we can see how this works. So this is now accessible through Siri. So Siri can hear your voice command for running these shortcuts, and it will run this shortcut. So let's try that out. So I'm going to wake up Siri here. Create new case record.
Field 1.
All right. So it kind of worked. This I probably broke things by putting that that dialog box in there, but you can see that it ran that script and the parameter I passed it from my shortcuts app was able to run that parameter. So that's Siri shortcuts. So you can chain a bunch of stuff together in shortcuts to be able to run. So you don't have to stop with just one command. You can have it do stuff with other apps as well. And a lot of other apps that you can get from macOS can donate things together. So you might want to send an email as an automatic part of this. So if I look for Apple Mail, I've got send email here. So I could send a message. I could pass in some recipients here, and I could put in a subject like, I just started on a case or something like that. So you can use these shortcuts to kind of automate your workflow a little bit more around your business process. So that's just the shortcuts app. Normally I just search for it, shortcuts, open it up. There you go. And the other app is Automator. So if you remember back in Automator is kind of like the predecessor to Siri shortcuts. It allows you to create more robust workflows than what you can just do with Siri shortcuts. So let's choose type for my document. I want to do workflow, search file, maybe not FileMaker in here. But there's a lot more features in here for workflows, but it's just generally the same principle. It's a flow, so it's a number of steps. So you can do not just a new mail message, but you have a lot more control about what that mail message says. It's going to be angry at me because I don't have a default email client set up. You can also record in using the Automator app. So if I record here and click
Field
on
2.
some things.
Field 3.
Oh, it's not going to log from FileMaker. But if I was in an app that was in here, it would record my steps here. Oh, actually, it's not allowing me to do this because I didn't turn Automator on in here. So really quick, and maybe now I can record some steps. So you can see Automator is recording. So I will choose Finder and let's go to desktop, choose projects, and let me choose my MS repo folder and then close that. And if I stop that now, you'll see that everything that I did there is recorded and part of the script now. So now I can use that to replay those actions. So I can turn this into a voice command now that says, open my mainspring repo folder, and it will go through and run through all these steps over again. So that can, I believe you can also run Automator actions from shortcuts. So all of these different things work together. They allow you to build the system. All right, so and then I'm going to delete this because I'm not going to save anything, and we're good to go. All right, so we've got some stuff in the chat window. That's mostly what the demo is, and the best part about all of this is all just built into macOS. You don't have to buy dictation software like Dragon. Dragon's pretty expensive. I think their Medical Pro version that they have is $99 per month per user. So if you were able to use these free tools, then you're saving $1,200 a user per year, which is huge if you have like a staff of 5. So make sure to send me a nice Christmas bonus for all the money I'm saving you by telling you about these free tools. Yeah. Not that I'm trying to bribe our clients, but I've got to fund my racing team somehow, right?
Oh boy.
All right. So let's jump into the chat here. I know this is being recorded. All right. So let's talk about this. So Thaleen asked, how would you do the wake up voice command without using the mouse? Thaleen, you just tell it to wake up. So wake up. And you hear that little swish noise. That's the little swish that told you it works. And then the opposite of that is go to sleep. Go to sleep. I don't know why it requires like doing that twice.
Well, you'd probably like you said, you'd have a microphone, and who knows what's going on, what it's picking up on in the background.
Yeah. So the very nice doctor that had us put this proof of concept together for him has a much better voice than I do, and he also exclusively uses a microphone. So part of it's based on your hardware, part of it's like the pentameter that you speak. Like I said, he's been using the dictation stuff for the better part of 30 years now. So he is very well trained in using dictation. And that's part of the challenge with using hands-free and dictation stuff. And this was also a problem with using Dragon that a lot of people couldn't overcome, was you have to train yourself as much as you're training the software. So for every keyword trigger that I create, for every text expansion that I create, for every shortcut that I create, somebody needs to, that list of commands needs to be documented somewhere so that people know that they can say that in order to get that result. So the proof of concept here in terms of like text expansions, the big deal here is that this is table based in FileMaker. So you can create an unlimited number of text expansions per field and put some very complex stuff in here. And then if you want to also, since FileMaker supports rich text, you can pre-format this text too. So if I want to make this text bold and like, 24 point, I can do that and FileMaker will substitute that out for me pre-formatted. So this is now dynamic and infinitely expandable. I think the doctor has a collection of over 500 text expansion things. So it's very important that he would have the ability to put in these rules himself and modify those rules himself. And then put in the keyword, the key phrase that he wants there. Practical use case for this. So obviously for terms of like doing an autopsy, doing crime scene investigation, when you're recording your notes, all the crime shows, you see them, they've got gloves on and they're holding up a voice recorder and taking notes by just talking into a tape recorder. This is kind of the same thing, except imagine if your hands are in gloves and, inside of somebody's chest. I mean, if you're doing an autopsy, obviously you're not going to have, like, once you start filling out that form, you're not going to have access to type on a keyboard or use a mouse. So things have to be driven by voice. And in this case, we have a very clear idea of where to go from here, because we're rebuilding existing software that has 20 years of testing behind it. So we know exactly what voice commands we're going to have to set up. We know exactly what functionality we need. We know exactly what this main form is going to look like. This project, this proof of concept, was just to see, to show the doctor what tools are available in macOS so that he can determine if he wants to proceed to rebuild this in FileMaker. If you can, if you're old enough to remember what it is, the original system is built in HyperCard. HyperCard is a very, very old Mac, like Mac Classic form stack that had some basic programming built into it, so that you could do things like fill out forms. But it was discontinued, when Mac OS 10 came out like 20 years ago. So I believe he wrote his system in a program, I think, called SuperCard, which was like the HyperCard replacement from a third party. But now even that's falling behind. Mac OS is changing year after year. Right now it's Ventura. Who knows what mountain they're going to name their next operating system after. But that's going to probably come out by the end of next year as well. And as these different technologies start to blend together too, you're going to see these features come across to not just Mac OS, but to iPhones and iPads as well. So there's the possibility of doing all this on an iPad as well with FileMaker Go in the near future. The Shortcut app was actually available first on iOS and iPad OS before it was available on Mac OS. So yeah.
That's sweet, Mike. Faylene, I don't know if you mind me saying what you said in a chat to me, but you don't have to be Quincy, medical examiner. It also would be, Faylene said, I can see this as useful in taking notes when scientists are working with animals, surgeries, etc., and need to take hands. I'm thinking inventory too. Like if you've got a computer across the way and you're doing something of looking in a box and talking about what's in it, or I just feel like, if you don't know that this doesn't exist, you may not have a use case, but once you start thinking about it, it's kind of like, holy cow, this is pretty cool, Mike.
Yeah, anybody that has their hands dirty that needs to use a computer to save a bunch of text. So in my case, like I said, I have a race team. I work on cars all weekend long. And that's usually a very messy process where I have gloves on and I'm, lying on my back on the floor underneath the car looking at something. And that's not practical for me to pull out my phone and take notes or anything. So if I had voice command driven note taking, even if it's only for the fact of, create new note, and it creates a new record for you, and you fill out a bunch of stuff in there and say save that note. These are all the proof of concept is to show you what tools are available so you can build it from there. But since this is all available today in Mac OS, and all you need is any sort of Apple device that has a microphone built into it, this makes it easy.
Mike, could you go the other way too? This is probably completely off base, but conceptually, if you're working on your car and you've taken specific notes about something in the car, couldn't you almost do like an Alexa thing where it would look in this database and return back to you?
Yeah, really, with the tools at hand, you could ask this questions. So like I said, you can integrate it with Siri shortcuts. So you could do one of those things like, hey Siri, can you look up, can you see if Rock Auto has brake pads for a 2003 BMW 330i in stock? And you could write a FileMaker script that goes to that site, looks up that car, looks in the brake pads, returns all the things available and how much stock there are, and starts reading those off to you with all those tools are here. You have voice feedback, you have keyword triggers, you have shortcuts, you have Siri shortcuts.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of conceptualizing what is the voice command going to be, what input does it need to record, what it needs to do with that input, and then tying that all together. So yes, and sky's kind of the limit, but the only thing about these kinds of projects that I would forewarn about is they're going to take some extra time because of the dictation portion. You're going to have to test and make sure it can all be done hands-free. Where does it stop working? What does it do if it doesn't really click or register? If your process fails halfway through, you're going to need to figure out, you have to run it through the ringer, make sure you find where all those issues are.
But you're confident that they can all be moved out. In other words, you had a couple little things here that if we gave you another week on this thing, you're pretty confident you could have chased all that out and made because I've used Dragon. When it first came out, I did a lot of work at Walter Reed, and there were a lot of docs over there. And it's just frustrating when this stuff doesn't work. Like all that middling little stuff. This is a demo. I don't get excited about it, but if you can't chase that stuff out, then it becomes super frustrating. But it sounds like, and you don't have to do field 1, field 2. You can have custom. You can have the name of the field there, and it'll figure it out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just scripted, so you can put anything you want in the script.
Gotcha.
So, and you, like I said, I mentioned it during the meeting, but I need to put a checkbox up here that just turns that off. So I could tell my dictation, like, turn off voice feedback, and it would be able to toggle that off for me so that it's not reading off as I'm trying to go through.
No,
the other big thing is, like, when I don't have anything selected here and FileMaker's in the foreground and I start dictating stuff, I'm going to get errors now because there's a little red thing that appears here because FileMaker is what's listening to the dictation because it's what's in the foreground. So I'll turn my microphone back off. But this is giving you the thing. It's the same thing, like if I don't have any field selected and I start using my keyboard, it's the same thing. It thinks I'm trying to type, but I'm not in any field. So those are the types of things, those are like UX, user experience things that we would work out as part of our testing process. Like what happens when somebody tries to dictate or use their keyboard here? We would suppress this error message and we would take them to the first field or to the next field. And I started doing some of that. Like I told it, like, so there's some global variables in this file that tells me like what the current or the last field they were in. So the last field I was in here was field 3. So I could use that for error detection here to take that person back into field 3, go to the end of their text so that they can continue appending to that dictation.
Gotcha.
And we're jumping around a lot here in and out of FileMaker. So there's voice control, shortcuts, Siri, Automator, all of those things are different programs. So every time you go to one of those programs, you know, FileMaker loses focus. You know, it gets grayed out, it goes to the background. So you need to be able to reactivate FileMaker as part of those things.
So it's 4 hours of development and 13 hours of QA, right? It's
And then another hour of development. But yeah, so where we're going with this client from here with this proof of concept is we're going to rebuild his other system that's, you know, in SuperCard on into FileMaker. So we know exactly what it is we're building. So it's very easy to build from here because the proof of concept file already has all the features that he needs. It has text expansion, it has keyword triggers, it has the voice feedback, it has the verbal commands. It automatically turns this on when it starts and stuff. That's what the proof of concept does, is it builds the features so that I can show him how the features work. But where we're going from here is actually, you know, building the main form, the form that he's filling out. Probably building some stuff around it, like a list view, you know, new case button, that type of thing. He doesn't even need the related case notes thing, so that's going to go away. And then from there, it's like 10 hours of development and, like you said, 20 hours of testing, and then another 10 hours of adjustments.
right. All right. Well, we're definitely going to have this as a recording. This was awesome, Mike. This is one of the more interesting ones I think that we've done.
Yeah, so I'm actually thinking about turning this into a DevCon session. So we'll see if there's an opportunity to present a more put together and polished version of this at a later date.
Okay. Do you have a tip or trick, or did you not get time to do one with this?
Yeah, I was in the dentist chair last night, so I didn't get a chance to get around to it.
Okay, so your tip is don't get dental surgery before a presentation the next day.
Yeah,
that'll work.
Awful. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can wrap. If anybody has any questions or anything, Maria's on the line. She can certainly help out. If you want to set up maybe a one-on-one training with Mike, or, you know, something, if you have a use case. Daniel, I see, you know, we're in total agreement. Like, if you don't even know this exists, you don't have a use case. But when you start thinking about it, it's kind of like, holy cow, the things are a bit limitless. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike, and we will see you in the 3rd week of March.
See you next month.
Bye-bye.